become an Arya bodhisattva, once you realise emptiness and you're on the bodhisattva path, then even the lowest level bodhisattva, and there's 10 stages of development before you become a Buddha, the lowest level bodhisattva already has the power, because they're beyond the usual ridiculous laws of karma in the neurotic sense, because their mind is so powerful, because they can literally manipulate physical energy. The great yogis can do that. Then they can manifest their mind in many bodies at once, at least 100 forms simultaneously. The Buddha is doing this continuously, and that's all related to the way the universe exists, the matter, the 4 elements, and the minds. They've got such power. It's not mystical, it's not even magical, although it sounds good, because they understand the reality, they understand how things exist. So they're beyond the rules of ordinary karma. There's no longer negativity, there's no longer creating any future suffering, impossible. But in a simple sense, karma is always working in the bare bones, mere cause and effect. In other words, if you're finally a Buddha, you're only practicing virtue and wisdom, right? Right?
Yeah.
Then that can continue to produce more virtue, more wisdom, more virtue, more wisdom. In the simple sense, you're still practicing abiding by the laws of karma, but you're way beyond the usual nonsense of karma. There's no longer negativity left.
So, as I see, the design is like there's a circle of karma.
No circles. No circles.
There's a rule of karma.
There's the law of karma, like the law of botany.
Right.
Then,
and in this law, every minute is just the result of the minute before.
Yep, and everyone produces the next one.
Okay.
That's
and
right.
then there's a being that is beyond that.
Who's gone, who's in control of it.
Fine. I'm talking about the mechanism about moving from this...
But I am too, I just answered. I didn't satisfy you, I'm sorry.
No, I didn't find the
thing to satisfy.
Yeah, because you say
listen, honey, I hear your point. So if we think that karma is mental energy, intention, right?
Mm-hmm.
Intention is the meaning of karma. It's the actual meaning. If there's no intention, there can't be any karma created in your mind. It has to be the mind. It happens to be we also have a body and speech. So our intention is the starting point, and then it informs our body and speech, and then our body and speech do the job of the mind, don't they? Intention says, I'll pick up the thermos, hand picks up the thermos. So we're caught up in that now. We're in the thrall of it because we have no control. We follow delusions, we follow all the nonsense, we're stuck in it. The Buddhas, or the Bodhisattvas even, the Buddha, completely, totally, utterly in absolute control of everything. Their mind is as big as the universe. They don't need bodies. They have the infinite wisdom to see all minds of all beings, all the past and all the future. They're effortless, vast wisdom. So if they take a body, they choose to get born in a body. So they're using, their mind is capable of choosing to go into that mummy's womb and take on a human body. They choose to do that. They're effortless. They're able to do that. And they can do that effortlessly in a million forms simultaneously. So they're able to utilise the physical energy of the universe, the 4 elements, and they can join their mind with it to do whatever they like. That's the mechanism.
So it's not an exception of the rule, it's using
it can't
the rule.
Be. There's no exception.
Using the rule.
Yeah, that's all it is. There can't be an exception to the rule. There can't be.
Okay, good.
There's never going to be a seed you put in the ground that takes all the right conditions that won't grow. Or better, there can't be a fruit without a seed. So, that's just an exception. A peach tree came from, it's a magic tree. It's a virgin peach tree, There can't be. You understand? So it's using it. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the point. There's this lovely story about the Dalai Lama. Take or leave these stories. I don't care. I like stories. So, okay. We've got the theories and we have this nice experiential stories. Do what you like with it. So he's said to be a Buddha. That's all I can tell you. I don't know. I'm not clairvoyant. But I'm prepared to think he is, and I have confidence in him as the Buddha. Whatever. It's my personal practice. So Lama Zopa told this story years ago. Apparently about in the early 60s, after the Tibetans had come from Tibet, and of course, this is exactly the point about down there, you sweetie, what's your name? Valda's point about saving the country. The Tibetan Lamas and the Dalai Lama were desperate to find land in India to build their monasteries to pass on the knowledge. Do you understand? They were frantic to do that because it would all die out and they didn't want that. So they were negotiating with the Indian government. And think of India, such a poor country, but they were so kind. Many people won't look at Australia chucks out refugees. They're sitting in there in some island, they're spending $50 million keeping the immigrant, the refugees, without getting them into Australia. They refuse, So look at India, so kind in welcoming these Tibetans, unbelievable. So there was all this negotiating between the Dalai Lama's exiled government in Dharamsala and the government in Delhi. So this particular story, roughly like this. This Tibetan minister for His Holiness's exile government in Dharamsala was down in Delhi attempting to get a meeting with the appropriate Indian minister about in these negotiations for these hundreds of thousands of bare forest land down south, which is now like little Tibet. You know, all the monasteries are down there. It's huge. But this is just forest. So the Indians were preparing to give it. How kind. So the Tibet, this particular story is something like, this poor minister couldn't get a meeting, you know, he's really frustrated. So he went back up to Dharamsala and complained to His Holiness. I'm just giving the story roughly. And His Holiness says, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. Go back down to Delhi. So he took the train, 12-hour journey, got to Delhi. And that particular day, the Indian minister's little boy was in the office with his daddy. So the little boy was chatting to the Tibetan, and he said he wanted a dog. Well, the Tibetan was delighted to get a dog, trying to grease the wheels, I'll get you a dog. So he went outside, and there was a sadhu with a dog. Can I buy your dog? Yep. He bought the dog, gave this little dog to the little boy. He was so happy, ran to Daddy. Daddy was happy, everything worked, So the story, as Mahamudra said, a Buddha, a bodhisattva for the lowest level can manifest their mind in 100 forms simultaneously. The Buddha is manifesting millions of forms continuously. As mad as it sounds, I'm just quoting the teachings to you. What can I do? So, the Dalai Lama is said to be a Buddha. Okay, so that means he's not just this Tibetan monk sitting up there that we think of as the Dalai Lama. He is at this moment in time manifesting countless bodies throughout all the realms of existence. This is what they say. So therefore, as Mahamudra said, that sadhu and the dog were manifestations of the Dalai Lama's mind. And he doesn't need a womb. He doesn't got to get bored and wait. He can just, boom, appear, manifest. So this is why Tibetans have a lovely saying. You don't know who anybody is, so don't judge. It's scary. It's true. This is why, I don't like to talk about the Bodhisattva teachings. I mean, bodhicitta and compassion is fantastic, but you really start going in detail to the Bodhisattva teachings. Vajrayana, forget about it. Even the Bodhisattva teachings are heavy. That one, you don't know who anybody is, so don't judge. That's not comfortable with us, because we want to believe that everything we see is true. That evil person there. You understand my point? And when you start to hear the Bodhisattva teachings of these crazy guys doing this and that, it's kind of shocking. Because they're looking like they're naughty, but they're holy beings. And who can know this? Because we're as blind as bats, we can't tell. But it's a bit scary. So the dog and the sadhu, now the point is this. It would have looked like a dog. He would have peeped like a dog, eaten like a dog, and behaved like a dog. Maybe he was even a mean dog. He wouldn't look like a saint. He wouldn't look like a holy dog. He wouldn't have had a halo. He wouldn't be winking at you saying, I'm really the Dalai Lama. You never know it was the Dalai Lama's mind. Do you understand? I know this is hilarious. But all this is in the teachings. It's technical. Their capability, as you said, to use the laws of the universe. That's why it's a practical law. But you'd never know. You see a sadhu, you see a dog. Unless you're clairvoyant, you would not know. So that really shakes you a bit. If this is reality, it kind of makes you nervous. You understand? How do you know who Hitler is? The Tibetans would have no problem that Mao Zedong could be the Buddha manifesting in a wrathful form to slaughter them all, to help them purify their karma 1 million lives quicker than normal. This is too shocking. We don't want to go there. I mean, you don't get all cosmic about it, and some man comes at you with a gun. Oh, it could be the Buddha, shoot me. No, use your common sense. What else? Lydia. So, okay, we just touched upon emptiness, okay, trying to... What I want you to get is it's a continuation of an evolution from understanding karma, which is an example of dependent arising, and then when you go to the mind, which is high school, and you start to learn about the ordinary delusions, how they are misleading us. When you get used to that aspect, then that will help, both of those help you understand the two main parts about ego grasping. One, due to past karma, dependent arising, and then two, the way ego grasping is the deepest lie of all. So doing junior school and high school obviously prepares you for this. They're not separate. But in the literature, often we think of the middle way teachings and the emptiness teaching as completely this separate little bell and whistle over here that has no relationship to the rest. That clearly can't be how it is. That's why you've got to go through the stages first. The more you understand karma, the more you understand dependent arising. Dependent arising, as Lama Geshe puts it, is the king of logics to prove emptiness. And then talking about the mind and the delusions and how they function, how they're misconceptions, how they mislead us, helps us understand the deepest misconception, the ego grasping, that misconceives the very ontological character of something. It's the subtlest one. Of course it's sophisticated thinking, of course it's fascinating, but it's realistic. It's not just, you see, that's the thing I think, again, that's really fascinating in our world. You know, the whole, when I heard a bit about Mr. Socrates, you know, the Socratic approach, I found it really quite nihilistic. We understand that science and maths, you don't just rave on about scientific, you know, mathematical equations. You use them practically, don't you? You make sums and you build buildings. In other words, maths has an application. Do we agree with that? But, you know, philosophy, the Socratic approach is you have an open mind, you listen to every kind of view, but there's no concept of practicing them. You just sit there with an open mind. That's nihilistic. In other words, we don't have a view philosophically that there is reality. The only reality we call in the world is mathematical reality, scientific reality, not philosophical. That is, for me, quite a shocking concept. Are we communicating here? My friend Jeffrey Hopkins, Professor Jeffrey Hopkins, we worked together in the 80s when I commissioned him to do meditation on emptiness for wisdom, okay, when I was working for Wisdom, in 83. We published it there. And I remember talking to him, and he was then the professor who started the first main Tibetan Buddhist school for Asian, you know, well, not Tibetan, but Asian thinking, but it was Tibetan Buddhist teachings, who was a practitioner in America. So since then, a whole generation of his students are now professors in some of the main schools in America, you know, where they teach Tibetan Buddhism, but practitioners. He said initially he was looked down upon by his fellow philosophers because he practiced it. That's what I'm trying to say about philosophy, because we don't have any view in our world of some kind of there's any kind of we don't have any view that internally, subjectively, you can find reality. That's Buddha's complete point. It's internal. It's subjective. Not subjective meaning it's your own view, but it has to be discovered by the internal workings of the mind, which is meaning subjective as opposed to a microscope on a thing. That's the point of Buddhism. And that he says there is reality. Things do exist a certain way. He doesn't own it. He didn't make it up. He didn't create it. He has observed it, which is emptiness and dependent arising. He says that's where everything leads. Add bodhicitta to it, you have a Buddha. So it's philosophical and psychological. As well, there is the massive view, which is included in karma, and especially taught in the Vajrayana, the intricate explanations of the physical universe. As Lama Zopa said, in the Kala Chakra Tantra, for example, there's all these texts. The word sutra is used to refer to an approach to the teachings, all the first stages of practice. And then there's also refers to a text that contains those sutra teachings. Tantra is the same. There's an approach which is called tantric, and then there's the tantras, which are the texts that include those teachings. So in the Kala Chakra Tantra, the texts, Rinpoche said there are these detailed explanations of the intimate relationship between internal and external energy. Internal is mind. External is referring to the four elements. That's the physical universe. This is also physical. So the universe consists of the four elements and consciousnesses. And there's this absolutely inextricable, intimate relationship between them, because like I said before, this is Vajrayana, all mind streams, minds, are inextricably linked to their own set of the four elements. And that's the subtle physical energy. And then down to very subtle consciousness. You've got so gross level, we have gross, subtle, very subtle. So gross level, and we'll discuss this maybe tomorrow, the death process. This is from the Vajrayana. You've got the gross consciousness and gross body. They're inextricably linked. So gross body is including the brain, all the bits and pieces, the nervous system, all the intricacies of all our physical body, and it's inextricably linked with our consciousness, the way Buddhism would say. So subtle consciousness and subtle consciousness and subtle physical energy. Like I said, that's consisting of these 72,000 subtle channels. The Tibetan medical system is based on this. The doctor feeling your pulses, she's feeling those wind energies coursing through this 72,000 subtle channels. And all those wind energies are inextricably linked to your different states of mind. Obviously a different model than we talk. And so, as they say, the mind rides on the winds. So as I said, your Tibetan doctor feels your pulses. She feels an imbalance of certain wind, and she knows it's related to your attachment. That's why you're anxious. Your anger, all the states of mind are linked to their own winds, and so that's why you go to your Tibetan doctor, and she'll give you certain herbs that will balance your wind energies, which then help your mind calm down. You go to your other doctor, he'll give you serotonin, which calms down the chemicals or something, and then you get less depressed. Same logic, because mind and body are intimately connected. So, in the Kala Chakra chapter then, Rinpoche said there are these detailed descriptions. So karmically, like I said before, there's 4 ways that karma manifests from our past actions. And it covers the entire universe. There is nothing left out of it. It can't be. It's the law that runs the universe, all universes. And it's all driven by sentient beings' minds, which is why Buddha says you don't need a creator running the show. We do it to ourselves. We do fine creating our own suffering and our own happiness. We don't need a boss. This is literally what you could say. So, as Rinpoche said, because we're talking millions of lifetimes here, we're talking planet after universe, not just this little baby planet. It's like nothing, you know, Buddha's view. Of course it's cosmic, I agree. So, as Rinpoche said, when, let's say the mind is angry, that pollutes those particular wind energies, which karmically causes you eventually to have a sick body in the next life. Not to mention now. Not to mention now. And then in turn, even further karmically, the habits of all these will manifest will affect the external elements, and then you're born in a place where there will be disharmonious elements, filthy, dirty. So every negative action and every positive action has any of these 4 results, so including environmental. This is literally created by the karma. So, for example, okay, what's your... One of the environments you've got is you've got enemies around, haven't you? I mean, you get my point, don't you? You guys. I mean, in Australia, we have... I mean, the Aborigines, you know, there's a struggle between the whites and the Aborigines. There's no war yet. They haven't got a war yet. Who knows? It might come, you know, you never know. But here, you've really got 2 enemies. That's part of your... That's environmental karma as a result of your past, not killing, but disharmony. When you have schisms in groups, in organisations, in Buddhist groups, in families, divorces, this is due to bad speech, disharmonious speech. So you're born in an area where there's a lot of fear. That's due to harsh speech in the past lives. Collectively as a group, it could be 1,000 lifetimes ago that you created this karma collectively, and now you're born in a similar environment at the same time where it engenders fear. Because you're surrounded, you're not surrounded, but you've got some enemies, you know. I mean, that could be in Los Angeles where the Mexican gangs are. Same concept, you understand? With the physical environment, they're not your family, they're not doing it to you personally, but it's always there and you're nervous about it. That's due to harsh speech in the past. That's environmental karma. Let's say, if the food here was really polluted and dirty and the water was filthy and the food wasn't very nourishing, that's due to past killing karma, that your environment harms you instead of benefits you. Do you understand? Virtuous karma is exactly the same. So you could argue, looking around Israel, you know, you've got really nice houses and lovely ground and lots of things, and the sky's nice, the food's delicious. That's the collective virtuous karma of non-killing. But one of you might have allergy to peanuts. That's your non-virtuous karma of killing, that a peanut will kill you. So even the elements themselves are not existing from their own side. They're the manifestation, you know, of the inner, the mind. The elements are always existing. The subtle elements are always there. And there are minds with their own elements. And they all impact upon each other. Everything is intricately, interdependently functioning. And the cause of all of it is minds, not a creator and not accidental. It's all explained in the literature. Are we communicating here? So,
Isn't karma is individual?
sorry, what?
I thought that karma is individual, it's not social.
Oh gosh, it's totally social. Oh my God, yes. Because we do things in groups, don't we? So Israelis are a very clearly defined group of people who've got very similar karma from past actions you've done together. And you experience things as groups. So we do things as groups and we experience the results. So all the Tibetans being suffering at the hands of the Chinese communists, that's very powerful group karma. Groups consist of individuals. They each bring their own story to it, but absolutely, it's social, environmental as well. Oh my gosh, yes. Because look at us, we're very social beings. You know? A family has got group karma. Individuals can have their own, but groups also can share similar things. Oh, there's no question. Absolutely. Time for dinner. Are we communicating, Sharon? You're enjoying this interesting view of the universe?
Very well.
Okay, good. Take it or leave it. Relax. You know, how are you going, dear? Dear, you all right? You're managing? You're having a mental breakdown? All right, then. I mean, if you didn't laugh, you'd cry, wouldn't you, really? Yes, honey?
The emptiness
Yes.
and the inherent emptiness.
No inherent I. Emptiness is the absence of the inherent I.
I find it hard to conceive emptiness that doesn't exist within itself. It's only dependent on something that isn't there anymore. So isn't there something...
That's not quite the right word, sweetheart. So say it another way. It's not quite the right word.
I'm trying to think, like the empty bank account.
Yeah, that's right. The absence of money in the bank.
But if I never had that 60,000 shekels, it's still not there.
No. Stop right there. Excellent point. Wait. Excellent point. The emptiness of 60 shekels is only existing for the person who thought 60 shekels existed. It's a completely dependent phenomenon. Listen, if you realise the truth, there are no 60,000 shekels, you realise emptiness. You don't need to realise it. You get the point I'm making. If you already know this is blue, you don't have to fix the fact that you think it's red. So it's only if you've made the mistake that you have to realise the emptiness of it. That's the point. Are you hearing that point?
Yeah, I'm hearing that.
Good. So where's the problem? What's the problem with
it
that?
It seems that they depend upon each other.
What do?
What Buddhism defines as emptiness
As
depends on the fact that there wasn't something there.
Well, it goes. That's the whole point, dear. That's the whole point. What's your problem? That's the whole point.
I mean,
What's your problem with it?
That I thought that emptiness isn't depending on something
No,
being there or not
there's no
being there.
such
It's
thing.
like a fact.
There's no such. Everything is dependent. Very good point. There is nothing that exists that can't be, that is interdependent. That's Buddha's point.
So it's not a given.
There's no givens.
Nothing.
No, of course not, darling. Not like that. No, that's a very interesting concept. Not like that. Because the fact is, once you realise the emptiness of the red, you don't keep going on about how it's empty and red. You realise it, now you'll get on and enjoy the blue thermos. So once you realise the emptiness of the fantasy I you've always clung to, now you've got your mistake fixed, now you're happy and you can enjoy all the lovely dependent arisings. Emptiness is gone, it's out of the way now. You're finished.
So just
Yeah.
what you said is that emptiness itself is dependent arising?
Everything is a dependent arising. There's nothing that isn't a dependent arising. There can't be anything that doesn't exist interdependently. There can't be. Impossibility, Buddha says.
So like,
What about this?
Wait, hang on. Hang on a second. Go.
so this would be like the emptiness of tea for me, and for a Buddha, what would it be?
Oh, that's a different
For
discussion.
example?
That's a different discussion. So in Dharmakaya, there's two things. There's the there's the nature Dharmakaya, which is the emptiness of the mind, and then there's the Dharmakaya, which is the mind. And mind, by definition, is impermanent and empty. But the emptiness of the mind, that's also another phenomenon, and that it too is also empty, also a dependent arising.
Also dependent.
Nothing cannot be dependent. And it's not, you see, it's a very interesting point, this, because if you're a really devoted Christian or somebody who believes in God, this is like diminishing God. And that's one of the points about when we think of it as an inherent God who is beyond, necessarily is beyond and is pure and doesn't have causes. We hear that if you're a Christian or a devoted believer in a creator, that makes him seem special. As soon as you say God's independent arising, it diminishes him. So we want to reify and make it perfect and delicious and above and perfect and solid and concrete. That's what Buddha's arguing with. So it's a shocking... I mean, I'm a friend of mine who's a Buddhist now. For years, she kept believing God was more than Buddha, because Buddha seemed inferior, because he was a regular guy first, you then become a Buddha, and as a dependent arising. But you've got to have something beyond dependent arising. That's what we think of as absolute. No such thing, Buddha says, can exist. Absurd. It's a fantasy we've made up. That's his point. Dinner. So think of dinner as empty. Meaning, dependent arising. Cause, people, animals die, creatures, cooks, people, pots, electricity, the oven makers. You start thinking of all the beings involved, you know. You'll never end. So we think of all of them, the dependent arising for the people. We think how amazing, how kind they are. But for this I wouldn't have dinner. So then think I'm delighted to eat dinner. Really. And I'll see, what time I'll see you? I'll see you at
7:30.
7:30. Okay, so an hour and a half for delicious dinner. Can you talk again? You've got to be silent.
Until dinner?
Dinner silent or talk? You can be silent. You have to be silent. The other people.
Yeah.
Okay, relax.
Silence.
Silent.
Have to be silent. Because the people are there, are they?
Yeah, they're gonna come a little bit later, and we might.
Overlap.
Yeah, we might overlap.
Okay, whatever, just relax.
It's better to be silent.
Yes, go.
חנויות הספרים תיסגר